I'm Jan. And I'm Ronnie, and we are designing dishes.
Today we're making something that is very popular all over the U.S. It is a clam chowder. Now there's two types of clam chowder. One is Manhattan clam chowder, which is a red chowder, and then there is a white chowder. And today we're making the white chowder, and it is called New England.
Okay, as a professional home economist traveling around the United States, I've tried a lot of clam chowder, and I have found some of them to be absolutely wonderful. But then you get sometimes the one that's absolutely too thick. You can take your spoon upside down and the chowder kind of hangs to it, you know. It's all full of cornstarch and flour, tastes real pasty. And then occasionally you get a bowl that's like so watery that it has no flavor to it at all. And then sometimes you get a bowl of chowder that's full of potatoes, but you can count the clams that are in your bowl. So if you can count, you know, like 1, 2, 3, there's pretty bad. Our chowder is going to be a cross between that. It's going to be just the right thickness, and it's going to be packed full of clams. In fact, there's a total of 28 ounces of canned clams in our chowder.
Now, if you want to, you can use fresh clams. They're not available in all regions, but if you want to use fresh, you're more than welcome to do that. If you have any comments about the clams that you're using, you can comment on our YouTube site, Designing Dishes, or if you have any questions, contact us at designingdishes@gmail.com.
And we'll give you the recipe using the fresh clams if you would like. Today our clams from the canned clams and clam juice. Our source for clam juice is bottled clam juice as well as the juice from the clams. So we're going to drain these clams. These are chopped clams. And we are not going to throw this juice away. Again, we are saving that to use a little bit later in the recipe. And this can that I'm putting in right now, these are whole baby clams. And we're just going to set this aside. This will be used towards the end of the recipe after we have cooked the potatoes.
Right. Ronnie, why don't you tell us about the potatoes?
We have 3 different potatoes that are here. Now this one is not the one that you want to use for the clam chowder. This is an Idaho russet potato, and it's good for baking, but it is going to fall apart if you use it in your soup or your chowder. It's too mealy.
It is. It is way too mealy.
And these two are the appropriate potatoes that you want to use. This is a white skin or a white potato, and this is red skin. And you can tell that these are the right potatoes because there's a waxy feel on the outside of the potatoes. And that waxy feel is going to be your indication that this is a low moisture potato.
Yes.
Low moisture potato will hold up in the chowder, and you'll still have chunks of potato when the chowder is done.
Well, I think at this point it's time to go to the stove, and we're going to be making our New England clam chowder.
The first step in our clam chowder is to heat our pan to about medium high, and then we're going to add 3 strips of minced bacon. We're going to let that cook for about a minute, and while it's cooking, the fat will render off, the bacon will begin to turn brown, and that's how you're going to know that the bacon is cooked and ready to go. And I'm going to hold this side of the pan for you a little bit. Okay, we're going to add the butter.
Yes, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. Ooh, got a little steam coming out of here. At this point, we're going to add 2 cups of chopped onions. Oh, those onions look delicious.
They certainly smell like onions.
They sure do. And we are also going to add 1 cup of chopped celery. At this point, we're going to allow this to cook about 5 minutes until the onions and celery are translucent.
And one of the other ways that you can tell when the vegetables are ready is the onions will look like they could have moisture on the outside. They'll look like they've actually been sweating. And we're also going to do the pork test again, which is our ultimate test.
We are.
In this case, it's the celery that's going to take the longest to cook. So we're going to pork test the celery. When it's tender and the onions are sweaty, we know we're ready to go on to the next step. Okay, Okay, it's been about 5 minutes, so just test the celery, see if it's fork tender. Looks like it is, fork tender. I think we're ready to go. Now we're going to go next with the garlic. And you will find a lot of recipes that will tell you to add the garlic with the onion and the celery. Ignore those directions. Those are absolutely totally wrong because the celery has the garlic has a tendency to burn and to make it a kind of a bitter taste in your food that you're cooking. So you want to add them at the very end, the chopped garlic at the very end, and only give it about 30 seconds to a minute to cook. Now this is 1/3 of a cup of flour, and we're going to sprinkle this in and mix that in really good. And we need to let this flour cook for about a minute. If we immediately poured our liquid into the saucepan, what would happen would be that the mixture might have a floury taste to it. So you've got to let it blend with the butter and the fat from the bacon, and that's going to take about a minute. Just let it sit, stir it every once in a while, and we're almost ready then to add our next ingredient, which is a bay leaf. Actually, we can go ahead and add the bay leaf while we're waiting for the flour to do its thing. Bay leaf is just basically an herb.
Yeah, no, it's going to add a lot of flavor, isn't it, Ronnie?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one thing to remember when you're through with this recipe, take the bay leaf out because no one wants to eat the whole bay leaf in their soup spoon. So
right. Okay, so I think we're ready now. Now be careful on the flour when you add that you do not allow it to brown, because if the flour browns, then your soup is going to have a slightly brown color to it. And we're making New England chowder, which is supposed to be white, so we don't want any brown in there. Okay, so we're going to pour in now this is the bottled clam juice, and I'm going to pour it in, but when I get to the bottom here, I'm going to pour it in real slowly because you may be able to see on the camera that there's a little bit of sediment in the bottom of the bowl. Now that sediment is basically sand from the clams, so we don't want to pour that in. So we're going to stop when we get to the sediment. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but there is sediment there. Now this we're going to stir and until it comes to a boil, and Jan's going to crank up the heat here a little bit for us. We want to bring this to a nice boil, and then we're going to add potatoes to it also. The reason we want this to come to a nice smooth boil, and the reason Jan is stirring so much, is because we don't want any lumps from the flour. And if you just let it sit here without stirring, you might have flour lumps in there. So you want to make sure that you get it blended and everything mixed in. I'm going to go ahead and add potatoes while we're waiting for that to happen.
It's almost boiling here, yes.
And that is 1 pound of white potatoes.
Looks good, Ronnie.
And by the way, the clam juice that we added was 24 ounces of bottled clam juice. We're going to let it come to a boil, leave it uncovered, and let it cook then for about 20 minutes. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes, and our potatoes are cooked. So at this point, we're going to add in our clams.
Ooh, look at all those clams, Ronnie. It looks delicious.
Yeah, a lot of clams. We're going to add our reserved clam juice. Now this was, again, the juice out of the canned clams. And again, we're going to look towards the bottom as we're pouring it in for the sediment. And we're going to stop pouring when we see that sediment. Right about now. Now, one of the beautiful things of this chowder is it's not filled with a lot of cream, half and half milk or whatever. It's only 1.25 cups, which gives it the creaminess that you're looking for, but it's not going to be all about heavy cream, half and half. It's really going to be more about the broth, the broth, the clams, and the potatoes. We're going to add a little hot sauce to that. Now, of course, this is at your discretion.
Lots of it, Ronnie, for me.
I know. My discretion is done. Jan's discretion is right about here. Or
Okay, that's good.
Maybe even a bit more.
I know.
We're going to add some salt and pepper. And, of course, we will check the salt and pepper at the end after it's cooked.
How much did you add here, Ronnie?
I didn't really measure, quite honestly. I always do salt and pepper to taste, but Just maybe a quarter of a teaspoon of
Sure.
pepper and probably a half a teaspoon of salt, something like that.
Okay.
But it's kind of hard to tell you because, everybody has their own taste for
Sure.
salt and pepper.
There's that bay leaf.
There's that bay leaf.
Cooking.
Again, we're going to leave it in until it is thoroughly cooked. Now, this is going to be cooked uncovered again on medium heat, maybe medium to low. Because now that we have the milk in there, we want to be very careful. Milk tends to burn when it cooks. That's one reason why we added the milk at the end. And the way that you're going to know that your milk is burning, if it is burning, is you will notice that you'll have a brown, sticky glaze over the bottom of your pan that if you don't stir it while you're cooking will actually turn to black. So you don't want that to happen.
Right.
And what's happening when the milk starts to burn actually is the lactose in the milk, which is the milk sugar, is settling out to the bottom. A good way to prevent that lactose from settling out or that milk sugar from settling to the bottom is always use low heat and stir every once in a while. You don't have to stir constantly, but probably about every 5 to 8 minutes you want to go in there and stir. If it does happen that you start getting the brown substance on the bottom indicating that your milk is sticking and burning on the bottom, the best thing for you to do is to take a second saucepan and pour your mixture into the second saucepan and cook it in that, because it's just going to continue to burn, and if you stir it, what you're going to actually be doing is stirring the brown particles or the burn particles up into your chowder, and it's going to taste and look awful. So check carefully, make sure it's not burning. This will probably take about 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, depending on how rapidly it comes back to a boil.
Our New England clam chowder has cooked at the stove for about 20 minutes. It looks absolutely delicious. I'm going to show you some options on how to present it. We can do it either in a mug or a nice bowl. You can see I've used a dark color bowl here, which will show up the clam chowder very nicely. And we can also put it in the mug. What a great idea. Just sit by the fireplace and have your clam chowder. I think some nice ideas to garnish would be to, in fact, let me put a little more chowder in the bowl so you can see it. We're going to garnish this with, and some options might be a little bit of paprika. Oh, doesn't that look good? A little bit of parsley. And of course we like the oyster crackers. Oyster crackers are very good to use with this dish. The crackers are nice and small. They will stay nice and crunchy. And doesn't that look delicious? Thanks for joining us. We hope you really enjoy this New England clam chowder.
And we hope you try it because it truly is wonderful. One of the best that I've ever had.
Yes, definitely.
I'm Ronnie.
And I'm Jan, and we're designing dishes.